Okay, welcome to the Growth Project, a podcast brought to you by AMPLOS. Very excited for this conversation today. We are getting back together. Coach Alaura Sharp, it's been a little while, hasn't it, since we've had a chance to really catch up and talk and hear about your journey. But it's great to get back together. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it is full circle. I remember, I think the last time we did something, it was COVID Zooms. Before that, we were sitting on the couch in my office at Presbyterian College. So excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. All right, so yeah, let's start there. Let me provide a little context because although people who have listened to our podcast for a while know a little bit about Presbyterian College and why that's relevant and matters, but so that's where now granted, long time ago, really long time ago. In fact, every time I go out in my backyard to hoop with my kids, I'm reminded of just how long ago that was. But I played ball there beginning in the late 90s, so this was a while ago. Long after the time I was done, did work there as a sports psychology consultant, which is how we met. And so you had the head role there at PC, coaching women's basketball, and that's kind of what brought us together. And so yeah, cool to be reconnected now. And so let's start there for today. And so I'm really, when I think about some of the coaches that I know and have had the chance to work with, and historically, it feels like many of them would say that their path in coaching was some combination of not just like getting clear on my career, but even feeling like to some degree of like almost like a calling, like did it find me or did I find it, or was it a combination of the two? So can we start there, Laura? And you talk a little bit about like how did this whole coaching desire and this coaching trajectory get started in your life?
I definitely would say a combination of the two. I actually went into college wanting to be a college athletic director, and I was applying for grad school opportunities when I graduated from Southwest Minnesota State, and I played junior college basketball. Then I transferred to Southwest Minnesota State, and I just wasn't getting any callbacks. I mean, there was just nothing really going for me. And I was in this deep sea of trying to figure it out when my college coach from my junior year, he actually got a job in Colorado, and he called me and he said, "Sharpie, do you want to come out to Colorado and work with me?" And I said, "Sure, I'll do that." And I didn't really know the details, and I didn't really care. Honestly, I moved to Alamosa, Colorado, sight unseen. I made $3,000 a year. I waited tables at True Grit Steakhouse. So I'd work till 3, and then I'd go work till probably about midnight at the steakhouse and then do it all over again. My claim to fame at Adams State was I ran the football concessions. I hired student workers, and I would wake up really early in the morning and ground all this beef for walking tacos, which I don't know if they're still doing those, but those were a hit. And I line judge volleyball games, and I made ends meet. And then 2 years later, I had the opportunity to be the head coach at 24 years old at Lamar Community College. But the clarity is I've been doing it. This is my 19th season. I don't feel like I've ever gone to work. And sometimes you talk to your friends and people on a Sunday and, oh, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. And I just have found so much joy in the coaching profession. I love being a part of a team, and the players are my family, and I enjoy that and just honestly love what I do.
Okay, so I got to hit rewind for 1 second. Let me make sure I got this straight. So while at Adams State, although you were the basketball coach, you were also running the football concessions and line judging for the volleyball games while making 3,000. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. And I helped run our team camp, and my salary came through those camps of a giant whopping $3,000. And what's crazy is I grew up on a pig farm. I've known nothing but working. And you work hard on a family farm, and I never felt broke. I never had a credit card. My rent was about $200. I had a cell phone bill. I had a car payment. I don't really know how I did it, honestly. I somehow bought coaching clothes for the sideline. And I know I didn't travel much. I missed a lot of weddings back home. I know I kind of felt stuck to Alamosa, Colorado, but I definitely didn't feel poor or broke. I was living in the moment, and I was working for a great boss. He let me make mistakes, And Coach Kelly Kruger, I actually hire him as a consultant now. He coached for 40 years and he pushes me. He challenges me. Why did you call this timeout? What was this decision? Have you thought about this? He coaches me now as a head coach, and I'm thankful for that.
Hmm. Okay, I'm going to bookmark that, and I want to come back to that because I think that's really, really interesting. And I don't know that a whole lot of coaches are doing that. But let's click back over to your path. And I know some of our listeners are probably familiar with this, and others are not. But in the coaching profession, almost everyone spends a number of their early years in the profession, for lack of a better term, like really grinding. I mean, you're working hard. You're probably not earning a whole lot of money, as evidenced by your example at Adams State. A lot of the work you're doing isn't necessarily the ideal work that you got into this thing for. Talk a little bit about not just at Adams State, but what I would call kind of like your early years. What did all of that do to you as a person, and then who you were becoming as a coach? Like, what were some of the impacts that you were seeing during that time?
Well, I think starting at the level that I started out at, I got to be a coach. And I didn't start as a graduate assistant or a video coordinator. I
Mm,
got to actually coach. And I didn't realize at the time how rewarding that was to be able to go on the road recruit, to be able, I mean, I remember driving out to Snowflake, Arizona, which I don't know where that is on a map now, but and sitting in a family's home doing a home visit and having a book that we made on using not Photoshop but whatever was way before Photoshop, and the experience and the opportunities that I was given was amazing. And also, sidebar to, waiting tables and being a server helps you learn how to be a recruiter, because I've got about 45 minutes to try to get the most I can out of that table and connect with them so that I can get a tip. Because as a waitress, you make like $2 or $3 an hour, and your cash tips are a big deal.
mm,
And I would have giant parties, and I remember someone left me a whopping $70 tip one time, and I thought that was such a big deal. So all of those experiences really make you who you are. And that's something I talk to my team about too. Who are you becoming every day? And your experiences really make you who you are. And then you do what with those experience and all that knowledge in your brain moving forward.
mm. So I gotta wonder too, though, like particularly in those early phases and early times, were there moments where you found yourself wondering, like, is this gonna work? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this ultimately gonna be my thing? Like, are there any of those memories that come to mind?
I think my family questioned it more than I did.
Oh,
I think my later years, when you're on a 4 game losing streak or something as a head coach, maybe some of my times at Presbyterian, you start thinking, can I do this? Is this right for me? I'm exhausted. You think about that later, but in the beginning, I was so all in. And when I got the head job at Lamar Community College, I go all in. I was the bus driver. I went and got my CDL, thought nothing about it. I taped the ankles,
mm.
and I had to drive the bus, tape the ankles before I even wrote starting lineups in the book. And I didn't know that that was not normal as a junior college head coach. I was making like $28,000. And then the athletic director, it just so happened that it was 90 miles from Garden City Community College to Lamar Community College. And I took my team over to a Thanksgiving tournament. We played back-to-back days. We beat Garden City by 2 or 4 on a Friday night. And I took over. I mean, Lamar Community College was 1-29 and finished their season on a bench clearing brawl the year before I took over. And I mean, we started 4-0, and they acted like I was the president of Lamar Community College. It was amazing. And so I have no idea, it's not normal to make that and have a volunteer assistant. And then we beat Garden City, and not known by me, they bring in a search committee kind of the next day, and they watched me coach. And so they called me before my season was over at Lamar. And I told the athletic director, this is me being young and 24. I was like, no, I'm not interested in leaving. I love my job here. and
Mm.
he had made the playoffs. And so I said, well, maybe you can call me back when our season's over. So we lose on a buzzer beater in overtime, and we get home at 2 a.m. and he calls me at 8 a.m. the next morning. He was like, just so you know, you would have a bus driver, an athletic trainer, and 2 assistant coaches, and we'll double your salary, you know?
Oh, wow.
And so, and then I realized, oh, well, maybe I would come over and look at your, institution and whatever. But I look back at
Right.
that and think how dumb and naive. And that is the epitome of living in the moment and
Mm.
just focused on being really good and enjoying and being where your feet are.
Mm. Yeah. So you were naive at 24, really?
Yeah, definitely.
Believe it or not, somehow. So let's, here you are, years down the road at this point, obviously, but like, let's think about this question. What would you have done differently back then at that stage of the game? I mean, it's incredible to be a head coach at 24. I don't care who you're coaching, but knowing what you know now, what are some changes or things you would have done differently then?
Slow down. I think that the patience in the process of your team and your season, I think I really understand how to stop and identify the wins of your program. Your small, one of my favorite things is small wins demolish walls. And I think stopping, I would zip right past those things way back when. And I mean, I go to just the other day, yesterday, we had team camp at App State, and it's the first thing our team has done together. And not all of our team was there, but we had some of our practice guys there who we treat like a part of our team. Obviously, my staff together, and then several of our players were there working. They had high energy. They worked hard. I had several coaches talk to me about how good of a job they were doing. And so after camp yesterday, I just stopped, hey,
Mm.
small wins demolish wall. Today was a win. We went 1-0. It was amazing. I couldn't have asked for more from them. And I would have zipped right past that in my younger years and didn't even realize the importance of things like that. I would have thought that's normal, but it's not normal. It's culture. And I just didn't
Yeah.
realize that was culture way back when.
Mm. Yeah. I love that. And I think maybe that's something that you had to learn over time. I think that's true for a lot of coaches, right? You think about how you refine your philosophy, your values, all those things within coaching. It takes time. All right, so it's cool to hear about some of those early years. Let's do this. I'm going to buzz through a couple of your other stints. And so I know it was Lamar to Garden City, as you said. Then this was kind of a big shift. Garden City to Southern Miss, like those are definitely different types of places on different levels. So that was a great, step up. And then to Louisiana Tech, which is where you were, which again, I don't know how familiar our listeners are with kind of the landscape of college basketball, women's college basketball, but Louisiana Tech, ton of history. I can still see in my mind they used to wear the powder blue short sleeve untucked jerseys, right? Wasn't
Oh
that the
yeah.
thing?
Oh
Like I can
yeah.
see that in my
Brought
head.
those back.
But a ton of history in Louisiana Tech, and that was the precursor to then you coming to PC. So let's jump to PC, and I want to kind of set it up in this way by just framing it. So Presbyterian College, Clinton, South Carolina, in the kind of the pecking order of schools that are out there in Division One. To put it mildly and simply, it's a challenge. Like it's a real challenging environment to coach there, to recruit, and it's what makes PC great in the sense of like small town, intimate feel. And it's also the thing that makes it a challenge, right? Like not everybody wants to live in Clinton. And so you knew what you were getting yourself into going there. So talk a little bit about kind of like showing up there and seeing for the first time of what the challenges were going to be, and like take us through that psychologically, kind of your recollections of what that was like for you.
Well, it was interesting because I'm sitting at my desk at Louisiana Tech, and there was some things that happened. You talk about precursors. I had met one of the Presbyterian College assistant coaches in July, and I didn't know if Presbyterian D2, D1. I had no idea even where it was at the time. And I meet her. I remember having a good interaction with her, and she sent me a note, and she sent it on Presbyterian College notebook paper or stationery, I should say. And I set it in my desk, and for whatever reason, it stayed right there. So every time I opened to get a pencil, there was that stationery, which is crazy. And then I get a phone call on my office number, which no one hardly ever called it. And it was somebody asking me if they could put my name in to the athletic director. And I had met him randomly. He was working for a recruiting software. And for whatever reason, that happened that way. And I had no idea. I had to Google the college. And so when I'm talking to some mentors and different people, I really needed to be nudged. I mean, Mark Kellogg, I remember having coffee with him at the Final Four, telling him I've interviewed for this job. And he wasn't at West Virginia at the time. I think he was probably, I'm not sure where he was at the time, but I remember him looking at me and he was like, well, you just bet on yourself. You go there and you go all in like you will, and you bet on yourself as the head coach there, and you trust your work that you do. And so when I went on campus on the interview, I went with that mindset. And you make the disadvantage the advantage. So when you think about things, the people that I met there were amazing. And I know that if I surround myself with good people and the right people that are going to support you, then I knew that I could build something special there. And that's the mindset that I went on the interview. And then after that, I wanted the job. I hunted the job down, and I am so thankful for that opportunity, because my dream was to become a Division I head coach. And that was a dream come true for me when I finally settled on really going after it.
Yeah, I love that. And, I think there's a lot in there. And I wonder too, just would love to hear you talk about this. When you showed up on campus, there was very little evidence of success, just to be in the Division I era. Now, PC, while in the Division II era, which is when I was there, there had been some degrees of success. I mean, by no means would I have described either the men's or the women's program as powerhouses, but they'd had success. At the Division I, in the Division I era, there was really no evidence of success. And so you're coming in, you're excited about this, but you've got to bring people together and get them to believe in the absence of evidence, right? So it's not hard to be confident and believe when there's a ton of evidence behind you. When you're lacking that, that can be a real challenge. So talk a little bit about like how you went about that process and your mindset and philosophies in general on like how we get people to really believe.
Well, first of all, I feel like my identity is a program builder. If you really look at my background, it's everywhere I've ever been. The program was struggling and left it better than I found it, right? That's the goal of a coach. And so I learned a lot in that time. And so when I first got to Presbyterian, I just decided to take all that not ever been done and make it what we're working towards every single day. And I told every single recruit, come do something for the first time. There's only one first time to do a first thing. And we will be in the history books. And you're talking about leaving a legacy. You're talking about a banner hanging in a gym forever and long after us. And that became my recruiting spiel. And then I just started trying to identify players that love to win and players who maybe were at places that it wasn't very pretty, or recruits that were at places that did something for a first time, and not people that were at programs that were already winning, like Duncanville High School. I wasn't going to recruit a kid from Duncanville High School who'd won 6 straight state championships in Texas, right? So you want people that know that as they're going through the journey, they're okay if your gym is not better than their high school gym, or if they have to fundraise a little bit to go on a trip and do other things, and you're okay with being blue collar and selling to them player development, and I think that that's really where I grew as a coach too, is identifying players not where they were, but where they could go, and being willing to put in the work as the head coach, because you're also hiring really young staff who maybe haven't coached before, and it is their first coaching job. And being like I was as a junior college head coach, even though I'm at Division I still was really hands-on with the player development and spending time one-on-one, either on the court or in the film room with myself.
Yeah, and I remember that. Like, I mean, because those are the years when we were working together, and sometimes we talk about head coaches in different sports of kind of being in this like CEO role and all that. And that kind of implies that you maybe kind of the elevate, like you were not living at 30,000 feet in those days. I know
No,
that you were leading individual workouts and showing people how to take charges and stuff.
that's right. That's so true. But then the other part of that is figuring out, okay, you want to win, you want to turn the program around, but what do you actually want your players to leave your program with? What are the tangible things? And I thought a lot about that when I was starting the program, because I just feel like when I was younger, not that I only cared about winning because I love those kids and somehow they still love me, but I just coached them so hard. And I think I coached the player first and the person second. Now, as you get older, you realize, okay, I'm going to coach the person first, the basketball player second. And I always said I wanted them to leave with their ABCs, accountability, belief, and confidence. And the importance of learning accountability, not just for yourself, but learning how to hold other people accountable, which is leadership, and figuring out how to do that in the right way, and how to believe in yourself and believe in a system and believe in a leader and me and your teammates. And the confidence piece is so important, especially for women. I mean, women basketball players, they get their confidence from making shots and what they look like and trying to peel that back and teaching them other areas to find confidence and to go lean on the work that you put in and your muscle memory and all the stuff that you've done, and to search for it not on the stat sheet. And I think that's so important.
I want to drill down on something you just said because I love that. So the coaching the person versus coaching the player first. Can you translate that a little bit? So like let's imagine it's a normal Tuesday in January and you are walking into the gym. You're walking from your office to the practice facility to go start practice for the day. What does it mean to walk in the gym and coach the person first versus the player first? Like translate that for us.
Yeah. Well, you want standards. You need standards in your program. So you've got to find a balance between meeting your team where they are and still making sure that they're at the standard of the program. But the first thing you have to do, you can't lead them as a person without knowing who they are and where they come from. And so the relationship building piece is important. And I mean, I feel like you can't have people that work for you that you don't know anything about them as a person. And I feel like once you get to know a little bit about them, not that you have to know their whole life story, but you need to know what they like, what makes them tick, what some of their interests are, which gets harder and harder the older I get, the younger they feel. But you've got to get to know who they are. And then I think too, understanding that they want a voice and asking questions without allowing them to tell you what to do. But when it's right, what do you think about this? And I think this is something I maybe even learned from you, honestly, Drew, but teaching in questions and, going back to the accountability piece is when we're in a huddle after practice saying, who is the best person in practice today? Not your friend, but who actually lived our standards the best every single day or today in practice. And then who do you think needs to be better, and teaching them how to have eye contact, and then the other person how to receive that. And I think getting down to that level is important too, of who they are as young people and giving them a voice, but also you being a person. Sometime as the head coach, you're not human. I go back and I think about my head coaches, and I never thought about them waking up, drinking coffee. You think, oh, they're just your basketball coach. Well, I'm human too. And so admitting to your mistakes. And
Mm.
sometimes I might say to them, if I had this possession over, even if we might have won the game, or a timeout that I used, maybe I wouldn't have used, I would have saved it, or vice versa. I would just tell them that, hey, if I had this possession over, I would probably do this. And next time I will. And just kind of self-evaluate. I always think the number one indicator to a successful person is being able to be self-aware. And
Mm-hmm.
I think your players have to see you being self-aware, and you're a person, and it can align with who they are and how and just maybe wanting to try to be a little bit like you as their leader, I think is is important, and just the family environment and showing love to your staff. And if you want that in your team and you want to be close knit, it starts with the people that they're watching every day in practice.
Mm. So what you just went through right there to me is a really advanced and insightful perspective on kind of the human capital category of coaching and developing people, right? Like putting a great deal of thought and thinking about the other side of the conversation, the other side of the equation of how we kind of get the most and the best out of people, right? So let's think about this for a second. How would you describe your best practices for how you help people become their best? So like, let's imagine like I'm a current high school player and I'm thinking about App State. Like, how do you talk about your process of helping me become my best?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I make sure every recruit knows is I'm not for everybody. I'm
Yeah,
for
good.
I'm for recruits and basketball players who want to be the best person they can be, and they want to be the best basketball player, and they're about winning. And are you willing to put your stats under winning? Like,
Mm,
and what I mean by that is, are you willing to take less shots so that we win? Are you willing to be coached like that? And trying to get to selfless, because I want to lead the league in assists. That's part of our fabric and offensive system of play, would be the first thing that I would say. And then the second
okay,
thing,
let me interject something real quick. How do they respond to that?
pretty good. I think it weeds
Really?
out the right, it gets you the right kids, I think. And then on the flip side of that, then I'll talk about player development and my vision for them. And I'm going to show them, this is where you are, and this is where I want you to be. And this is the kind of shots that we're going to run for you and we're going to want for you. So then you also create a vision for them. And if you think
Mm,
they're going to be an impact player, then you're going to show them the shots that you're going to try to get them as their coach. That's my job, is
mm.
to get you a good open shot. And I want you to make it 40% of the time. But the other thing that I tell players that are potentially going to play for me and that are playing for me, my job as the head coach is to push them where they won't go by themselves.
I
And
love
that
that.
is my job as the head coach. And your assistants are going to help make them feel good during that process, because sometimes the process with the head coach, it's not fun, because I see you here and you're here and I'm nudging and I'm nudging. And when you are tired of me nudging you, I'm going to keep nudging. But I'm also going to have a pulse of them going back to the person, a pulse of, do you need me to back off? I'm happy to back off. And this is what that will look like for you. And, and just be willing to pivot as a leader, I think and be adaptable. I love that.
Mm. Man, my job is to help you go where you can't go on your own. There's a
Yeah.
lot in there because that extent, I know the way you're built and the way you think, that's well beyond the scope of like scoring 15 a game. Like that's an
Yeah.
all-inclusive metric.
Yeah. And, I don't know if it's they can't go, they won't. I mean,
Yeah.
because your mind tells you to stop. I mean, your body can keep going, but your mind is so powerful. And we do a lot of mental stuff. I mean, we have 3 standards, and one of them is the mental game. That's how much I believe in it. I mean, at PC, we had a vision board. I had a vision box. I'm that kind of coach. I believe in mental recovery. I just think that that is the next level. That is how you really get where you want to go. You got to
Well,
see it.
I agree with that. You're talking to the right person about
Yeah, I'm into it.
that.
That's why we connected.
Okay, so I want to hop back on the PC timeline for at least one more very important element of this. And so there were, in your several years there, ups and downs as we would expect, but in your last year at PC, a really incredible culminating series of events. And here's what's really cool is a lot of people in the world establish some type of vision of like, hey, just like you said earlier, you were recruiting players telling them, hey, come be a part of something who's going to do something for the first time. Sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like it's a awesome moment and a great time to talk about it when it does. Sometimes it doesn't. So that in and of itself takes a ton of courage and willingness to be vulnerable. Now, fortunately, this is a positive story where it did work out, where you said these young women who you were selling this vision to have come be a part of something for the first time. You all did that on a high level your final year at PC. So like take us through that ride. And so the journey that resulted in the first trip to the NCAA tournament, the big dance ever for PC women's basketball, like take us through that and just what it felt like and some of your best memories.
Well, ups and downs. There was so much, people thought we were going to be good heading into the season. We were preseason picked number 2, just under High Point. It was the highest preseason pick ever in the history of the program. And I think our team thought we were going to be really good. Um, our season did not go like we thought it would. I mean, we were cruising along in our non-conference and our leading scorer tears her ACL and there goes 12 points. And okay, you can manage that. We had a lot of depth at the guard. She was our best shooters, but we had another good shooter over there. So we pop her in, and then next thing you don't know, we're down 30 points. We lose 3 starters. We lose our 6th man. We have our best player is a 6'4" center, and we have nobody that can shoot around her really. And we really adapted, and we went on I think a 4 or 5 game losing streak. And I'm really second guessing myself. The players are second guessing themselves. I was really hard on them after a halftime or after an end of game. We just totally no-showed up at Radford. We got completely blown out. It was the first time we had played them since they beat us by a buzzer beater in the quarterfinals the year before. I just can't believe that we don't show up to play them at their place. And I really reflected on the bus ride home. I didn't like who I was. I just thought, man, I'm going to lose them. And how can I try to get them back on the right path, because we were headed into a gauntlet. We were playing the top 3 teams back to back to back, and then we were turning around and playing Radford again at home, and so who had just whopped us by over 20 points. And I literally wrote every single player in the program a handwritten letter, and literally a 14-page, and basically what I said: this is what you're doing well, this is what I love about you, and this is where we need you to lean into to improve and grow. And I was just really honest in those letters. And some of the kids really came to me, and some of them were in tears and happy tears of, I can do that, and then I just kind of got them rallied around to, hey, I can do this. And we started playing better, but we still weren't winning. And I kept telling them, the work is the work. We're getting closer to where we want to be. We're playing better ball. Hang with me, hang with me, hang with me, and you're just finding ways to try to just keep your claws into them if you can. And then so we had 3 kids injured at this point. We had lost 4 games in a row. We have Radford at home, and the score is 12-0 us. I mean, not us. We have 0 points.
Oh,
And a kid tears her ACL. You can tell she's screaming. She's a starter. And that was the moment that did it. For whatever reason, they decided enough is enough. We're going to come together. We're going to play for each other. And we ended up winning that game. Then it was 20-12. Next thing I knew, and we won 5 games in a row. We were playing probably the best basketball. And then we hit a big hiccup at Charleston Southern, but we still had won 5 out of 6. And then going into the tournament as a 5 seed, and we won. I mean, and we had to play Charleston Southern in the first round, and they had just drubbed us by 20 points, and we didn't play very well. It felt like almost another rock bottom. But the kids, I never, after we beat Charleston Southern, losing wasn't an option. It just felt like we got past that hurdle. And then we played High Point, who had won, I think, 9 games in a row, but they were bending. And we kept telling the team, they're bending. Someone's going to break them. Let it be us. And I used all the adversity of our season and everything that they had and we didn't have. I used it in my pregame talk, and we ended up winning that game and going into the championship game. And I never thought about losing. I kept telling our kids, and the other thing too, that my assistant Brooklyn Taylor kept telling me, because I kept saying, are our kids too loose? Are we focused? And social media, they're showing all of these videos of people, putting their name and advancing. And I just felt like our team was so much happier and more excited. And I felt maybe they're lacking focus. And she kept saying, no, fun, winning's fun. It's fun. They're having the most fun. We're going to win because we're having more fun. And that's really what happened. I mean, they rallied together. Enough was enough. They drew a line in the sand. They played for each other. All they focused on was one right decision at a time, one right play at a time. And by the championship game, I remember walking into a timeout. I didn't even need to coach. They were doing all of it as a team. And that's what I really remember as much as anything is that moment. And with about 2.5 minutes to go in the game, or 90 seconds, I looked up at the scoreboard, and by that time we're up almost 30, and I knew that we had done it, and I started smiling. And that's when the kids said, we knew we'd won when you started smiling on the side. And then after that, it's Presbyterian College is on the map. Barack Obama picks us in his
Oh, did he really? I didn't know that.
and we meet Don Staley, and we get home, and there's helicopters of news people, and there's a parade of all these people, and everyone's on the bandwagon, and the next morning we've got to do news interviews, and that went on for a week, because we had a whole week till Selection Sunday, and then the gym was packed for Selection Sunday, and then we won our first 4-in game, and we became the smallest school to ever play in the NCAA tournament and then win a game in the NCAA tournament. And they exceeded the hey, let's just win a championship. Then they did more things that I didn't even know were available to us. And it was the opportunity of a lifetime for all of us.
Man, what a perfect scenario for the Big South tournament to be a week before Selection Sunday. And they gave you a full 7 days to eat it up,
We
right?
ate it up too. And I told them, because I gave them a few days off, because they, our bench was so small at that point, and I gave them so much time. And then we kind of had a fun practice, and then I tried to start reeling them in, but at the same time I kept telling them, let's enjoy this. We've worked our whole lives for this.
Yep.
And they did. We made so many memories in that time, and our trip to Columbia, and losing to, I think we were win number 34 for South Carolina. They went on to win 37 games in a row and won the national championship. But it was definitely a blast. I've had a pretty good few months.
Hey, let's be real. Had it been anyone else other than South Carolina, all bets are off. Like, you guys might not have shown mercy to anybody else. So
That's right.
fair enough. All right. So I want to make sure we document the firsts in there, though. So make sure I don't miss any. So the first time in the history of PC for winning the Big South tournament, correct? First time
any championship in any women's sport.
in any women's sport. Okay, incredible. First time going to the NCAA tournament, certainly. First NCAA win. And then did you say smallest school to ever win an NCAA tournament game?
Yep, or to compete in the NCAA tournament. There's 900 students at PC.
Yeah. So just think about that for a second relative to like the day you walked into the office, and when you contrast like those two ends of the continuum, like what's that feel like for you?
Accomplished and proud, and it still makes me emotional to this day, of we did it. I mean, everyone would say, oh, what did you think when you woke up the next morning? I just thought we did it. And I had told our team, and part of my post-game speech at Charleston Southern was, I'm not coming home till I have a net around my neck. And so the kids couldn't wait to cut it down and put it over, and, put it on me. And I think just obviously seasons glue a team together, but when you face the adversity like that, and then you get what you want in the end, there's just nothing like that feeling of accomplishment against the odds. And I kind of feel like that sometimes, just even my background and being the head coach at App State, and everything that I've gone through, and the places that I've lived, and the jobs that I've had to be where I am now, I kind of felt it again coming to App State. I mean, we were at a gala, and there's all these fireworks, and I just was like, oh my gosh, I'm the head coach at App State. I've worked really hard for this, and it's another dream come true, and feels awesome.
Yeah, you well deserved, obviously. Okay, so yeah, let's get into that here. So first day on the job was when? I know it's been
April
short, but
5th.
it's been April 5th.
April 5th. Yeah.
Okay, so we're like 2.5 months into this deal, right?
Right.
So the excitement you've had about this new role, I know is huge, off the charts, well deserved. Like talk a little bit about like who at this point in your coaching journey, like who is Alaura Sharp? Like what who are you at this point as a leader and a coach? Like what are some words that really capture who you feel like you are?
I think I live my life YOLO. I mean, you only live once, and I am going to cannonball in no matter what. And I think that then that spreads to the people around me, that they kind of start living like that too, is I'm going to make the most of every opportunity. And with our team, whether we're in community service or we're waiting for our game to start, I'm going to try to have the most fun that I can, with also knowing that I'm going to put my head down and work. And I think that loving people with a strong work ethic is who I am, and probably how people would describe me. I'm really passionate and driven, and but also really fun loving. And I think that my team somewhat takes on that characteristic of that, and they play with a lot of emotion, and I live with a lot of emotion, and I'm not afraid to show that.
You know, it's really interesting. Like I'm going back in my head, Laura, of all the podcasts we've done all these years, and we're approaching like 300 some episodes, I think. We might have used the word fun more in this conversation, and it's been more so you than me. No, but it's really fascinating because like I think about this intersection of high performance and fun. And like and it's if we're being honest, in a lot of high performance contexts, fun is almost like a dirty word or something that's
Yeah.
not okay. That's not okay. Like where do you stand on that? Like like what is that relationship? And then how do you make that a reality in your program?
Well, I mean, we spend a lot of time together, and college coaching is freaking hard. I mean, the time, the commitment, the sacrifice. I'm sure, just like if someone's a CEO of a company, I mean, you are married to your job and the lifestyle of being a college coach. And so the only way to do that in a healthy way is to make a lot of it fun. And there's a time and a place for fun, and there's a time and a place for focus and drive and hard work. And I separate it, but I'm going to try to find, I want the 2 hours, 1 hour, 2.5 hours, whatever it is that I'm with my team. I want it to be the best part of their day.
Mm,
And it's not always going to be like that, but I want them to look forward to coming to a competitive environment. And fun isn't just giggling around telling jokes. Fun is competing. Fun is feeling accomplished. Fun is explaining to a player, hey, you're upset right now, but remember last week you would have been so happy, or 2 weeks ago, to be where you are right now. You're in the rotation, you're in the lineup, and let's just take a minute and enjoy that and take a beat before we start racing right on to the next thing. And I think people think fun is a certain thing. They think it's little kids playing on the playground, and it's fun in what you do. It's fun in the accomplishments. And that's what I would say to that. And not being afraid as a leader to laugh and put your shoulders down. And I go back to where I was a few minutes ago, just being a human and
mhm.
letting yourself just be that and be who you are.
Yeah, and I think too, in addition to all those great things you just outlined, sometimes it's work today so you can have fun down the line. Like I
Yeah.
think that's a very real thing as well. Like it's fun to make jump shots. In order to make jump shots, sometimes it's like work is work.
Yeah.
And understanding that the what I put in the bucket today, I might not see for quite a while, and that's just the way it works.
Take a beat, do something different. Don't play basketball, go play kickball. I love to prank my team. We got this
That's
really
good.
hard conditioning. One time they thought they had conditioning, and then we showed them how to jump a car and check their oil. And they're going to remember that. And I don't know
Yeah.
if that was necessarily, oh, this is really fun, but it's something they are going to remember. And just remembering that they are kids and they are young, and they finding ways to have fun, either it's within a practice, within a season. I like to do it when seasons break, the end of the summer, beginning of something. We could start workouts on Monday if we want to, but we're just going to find a way to have a blast on Monday, get to know each other. We're going to go for a hike on Tuesday and a swim, and then I'm going to cook them dinner. We're going to do all that before we ever talk about standards or rules or any of that. Just have a blast together, and then figure out, okay, now it's time to start working. Here's our standards. Here's where we're going. But I wanted to know me as a Laura for a few days before I get into Coach Sharp.
Yeah. No, I think that's so great too, because I think here's where my mind goes with that example you're tossing up there is we understand the relationship between environment, like how vital environment is. And I just know a lot of leaders out there who they want to have a great environment where there's chemistry and trust and all that, but they're not willing to spend time on it. And it's like, well, excuse me, if you don't mind, let me interject one thing here real quick. Like, that's not how the world works. That's not reality. So you dedicating the time and the effort to, before we jump into the trenches of what we need to do to get better, we're going to just build us. And I think that's absolutely huge. That's what it takes to create the environment that you're after. I respect that.
Well, and I think people always say, oh, your team, your culture, you're this, you're that. It hasn't always been like that. I mean, one wrong team member, whether it's a staff member, whether it's an athletic trainer, whether it's a member of the team, a manager, one wrong member, going the opposite way can really make a difference. You've got to assemble the right team around you and not be afraid to get to that. If it leads to removal, it leads to removal. And taking the time, a lot of people will say, how do you get your team to connect? And I think people want activities. People want, oh, we do this, oh, we do that, or this team building or this ropes course. But it's beyond that. I always tell that to our team. I actually said it to them yesterday that, we're going to do these things, but 4th of July, you plan it. You guys want to be together. You do something fun, because then it's got to be them creating an atmosphere of bonding and chemistry. And then playing that way on the court will start to show. But I think people think there's the secret sauce, but it's being intentional, and it's booking time in your program, but also pulling kids in. Hey, how long has it been since you've done anything with the team? Hey, how do you think this kid's doing? Why don't you take her to coffee? It's planting seeds as a leader to help your kids be the leader. You can't control everything as the head coach. We want to, but you can't and you shouldn't. And there has to be some seeds planted and then follow up. Hey, did you do that? How did it go? Especially when there's conflict. When there's conflict, try to resolve it out of the mix and
Right.
give each person an idea and let them work through it, and only get involved if you need to.
Yeah, I love that. All right. I know we need to kind of move toward the finish line here. Here's how I want to kind of end our conversation today. I want to go to a question that I love to ask, that is a part of a lot of our podcasts and a lot of conversations that I have with people in general. And that is, give us your personal definition of success. What does that word mean to you at this stage of your journey?
Well, I think the first thing I would start with what it's not. I think people think success is the end, where you're going. And it's so far from that, because if you don't get there, there was no success in between, right? And so success to me is those small wins. I said that earlier. One of my favorite, I'm not a big quote person, but one I love is small wins demolish walls. And those small wins are success to me, in my point of view. Whether it's you're working out, you're trying to lose weight, or you're trying to get stronger, a small win is, hey, you did it for 15 minutes. You didn't have time. You had a busy day. That's a win. That's success, that you're getting where you want to go. It's who are you becoming? you're putting deposits in where you want to be 2 weeks from now. And then 2 weeks from now, you look back and say, man, this is where I'm at. I would have loved to be here 2 weeks ago. So take a minute, celebrate the win, the success, whatever it is, and then set the next one and push yourself to the next one. That's how I build programs. That's how I live as a person. And now the success is our seniors have jobs, and our seniors all had options. And one of my former players just had a baby, and she sends me pictures, and
Wow.
that looking up in the championship game and seeing 2 members of our 7 and 23 team there with shirts on cheering. And I think those are the wins. They're not jealous of that team. They were a part of that success. I mean, I sent a piece of the net to former staff members who were there in the dirty trench times. I think it's the buildup.
Mm. All right, so we just did this in reverse order, but having now heard your definition of success, it is not shocking to me at all that y'all got to the big dance. Because I think that's it, right? It's about it's a process focus. It's refining and enhancing your process, having the humility to tweak and adjust it over time. And what do we always believe in and trust is that the results will follow. So I love that. And I love that you have already begun to put a list together of outcomes that you're proud of, with more to come, right? This time in the black and gold, though.
That's right. I'm
And who knows
excited to
beyond
do
that?
it. I can't
Yeah, I
wait.
can tell you are. All right. Well, hey, I know we need to wrap up. Can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us on the Growth Project, and very excited about what's happening in Boone. Beyond, it's not just a place to go to if you're looking for a place to go ski, right? Boone's a great place. No, but thrilled to see season 1 and beyond, and just congratulations to you for many of the things we've talked about today.
Thank you so much. And honestly, I don't know where I would be without you as a mentor way back when. I really use a lot of your stuff, and it's an honor to be on your podcast because I'm a listener also. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, and we look forward to our listeners benefiting big time from this conversation. So till the next time, thank you.